The cargo ship Starlift drifted through the dark stretch of space like a slow bird moving against the wind. Its hull was old but strong, with long scars from years of hauling freight between distant colonies. Inside, everything hummed with the steady sound of engines that had never failed a mission. The crew moved through the narrow corridors, performing their daily checks and repairs. Mira, the pilot of the Starlift, sat quietly in the cockpit. Her hands rested on the worn control panel, fingers gliding across the glowing keys with practiced ease. Her flight suit was clean but plain, showing no sign of rank or medals. She looked calm and serious, watching the blinking lights on the display that tracked their route toward the Orion Belt. Her co-pilot, a young man named Rian, sat beside her. He admired how still she was even during turbulence. Most pilots tensed up when the ship's stabilizers flickered, but Mira never flinched. She kept her voice level, her movements slow and sure. It made the rest of the crew feel safe. Rian tried to start a conversation. "Captain, you ever get bored flying cargo?" he asked with a grin. Mira's eyes stayed on the console. "Not when people are waiting for what we carry." "What are we carrying this time?" "Medical packs, food rations, and oxygen filters," she said. "For the outpost near Orion." Ryan nodded, feeling a bit embarrassed for asking. Mira always treated every shipment as if it were the most important in the galaxy. To her, no job was small if it meant helping someone live another day. The Starlift continued its steady path across the void. Outside the main viewport, clusters of stars drifted past in slow motion. The ship's navigation lights blinked like tiny red eyes in the darkness. The crew in the cargo bay were laughing and playing a game with magnetic coins, trying to pass the time. Everything seemed normal, calm, predictable, but Mira knew better. Space was never truly safe. She had seen too much in her earlier years to believe in calm skies. Though no one on the Starlift knew it, Mira once flew warships for the United Earth Fleet. Back then, she was known for her speed, her precision, and her fearless nature. Her flight suit carried the mark of the Top Gun program, a symbol of the best pilots Earth ever trained. But those days were gone. She had walked away from fame, from competition, and from the burden of medals. Now she found peace among the stars, carrying supplies instead of weapons. The silence of the bridge was broken when the communication console beeped. Ryan pressed the receiver. "This is cargo ship Starlift responding," he said. "Identify transmission." A weak voice came through the static. "Outpost 19 requesting immediate assistance. Reactor instability detected. Civilian evacuation in progress. We need help." Mira turned sharply. Her eyes narrowed as she leaned toward the speaker. "Repeat that," she said. "Outpost 19, the voice said again, trembling. "We have more than 300 civilians trapped underground. The main reactor is failing. Radiation containment has been breached. We have lost all main transports. Please, anyone who can help." The signal cut off suddenly. Rian stared at the monitor. "That was real, wasn't it?" Mira nodded slowly. "It was real." She opened the ship's navigation panel and tapped in new coordinates. The screen blinked red, showing the outpost's position on the edge of the neutral zone. It was several hours away near a cluster of old mining asteroids. "Command hasn't issued any emergency order," Ryan said quietly. "Maybe we should wait for instructions." Mira didn't look at him. "If we wait, they die." The young co-pilot hesitated. "We're not a rescue ship. We're just hauling supplies. We don't have the right shields for a reactor leak." Mira's tone was calm but firm. "We have cargo shielding plates, we have power cells, and we have hands." "That is enough," Rian swallowed. He wanted to argue, but something about her voice made him stop. There was no fear in it, only certainty. "Prepare the engines," she said. "We're changing course to Outpost 19. Ryan nodded and sent the command to engineering. The ship rumbled as its engines rotated toward the new heading. The crew began to whisper among themselves, wondering why they were leaving the planned route. The chief engineer, an older man named Bren, called from the engine room. "Captain, what's going on?" "The system shows a full course shift," Mira answered. "Outpost 19 is in danger. Reactor failure." "We're responding." Bren hesitated. "Captain, the radiation in that zone could fry our sensors. We'll be flying blind." "Then we will rely on skill," Mira said simply. The ship's lights dimmed slightly as the engines pushed to full thrust. The Starlift began its long turn toward the outpost. Hours passed. The crew moved quickly, preparing every piece of equipment they could find. They reinforced the cargo hold with extra shielding panels, readied emergency oxygen, and checked the escape pods. Rian walked through the corridor watching them work. Even though fear hung in the air, Mira's confidence seemed to hold everyone together. In the cockpit, Mira sat focused on the glowing map ahead. She could already see the faint energy signature of the outpost. It was flickering, unsteady. A reactor leak that size could destroy an entire colony if left unchecked. "Command will not like this," Ryan said quietly. Mira didn't respond. She remembered the last time she ignored a command. That was years ago during a war that left planets burning. She had made a choice then to save people instead of following an order. It had ended her military career, but it had not broken her spirit. "Sometimes doing what's right is not what they tell you to do," she finally said. Ryan looked at her. "You've done this before, haven't you?" She gave a faint smile. "Something like it." As the Starlift entered the neutral zone, the ship's sensors began to flicker. Radiation levels climbed, making the monitors flash warnings. Mira adjusted the shielding field to cover the forward hull. Through the window, the outpost came into view. It was a small metallic station built into the side of a rocky moon. One section glowed red, the sign of a failing reactor chamber. Pieces of debris floated around it. Emergency beacons blinked weakly in the darkness. Mira took a deep breath. "Bring us closer. We'll enter orbit above the colony." The ship rumbled as it slowed down. The radio came alive again, this time with the sharp tone of Fleet Command. "This is Command Control to Cargo Vessel Starlift. You are entering a restricted radiation zone. Evacuation response teams are already en route. You are ordered to maintain distance." Ryan looked at Mira nervously. "What do we do?" She pressed the comm button. "Command, this is Starlift. The outpost's reactor is nearing collapse. Rescue ships will not make it in time. We are the only vessel within reach. We are proceeding with emergency assistance." Command responded harshly. "Captain, that is not your call. You are a supply carrier not equipped for rescue." Mira's voice remained calm. "Understood, Command. But I am not watching 300 people die while I sit and wait." Before they could reply, she shut off the channel. The crew watched her in silence. Ryan's hands trembled as he gripped the control stick. Bren's voice came over the internal comm. "Captain, we're ready with the shielding. We can hold position for an hour, maybe less." "That will be enough," she said. The Starlift moved lower, entering the thin atmosphere of the moon. The glow from the reactor reflected off the ship's hull, casting long streaks of red across the metal. Mira guided the ship carefully through the debris, weaving between fragments of broken satellites. Every move she made was smooth, deliberate. Rian could hardly believe how easily she handled the ship. "How are you this calm?" he whispered. Mira didn't answer. She was watching the reactor readouts, analyzing the pattern of the leak. It was something only an experienced combat pilot would recognize. The same type of cascading failure that used to happen in damaged warships. She turned to Ryan. "Prepare for low-orbit hover. We are going to open the cargo bay doors. I need to drop shielding plates around the outpost's access tunnel." Ryan blinked. "You're planning to land there?" "Yes," she said. "If we can block some of the radiation, the civilians might reach the exit tunnel." The cargo team scrambled into action. Heavy mechanical arms unfolded beneath the ship, gripping large metal panels used to secure cargo during travel. Under Mira's guidance, they dropped one after another, building a protective layer over the burning section of the colony. The reactor pulses began to weaken slightly. The ship's heat sensors showed improvement. Ryan looked amazed. "It's working. You're buying them time." Mira nodded. "Enough time for us to start the rescue." Then the radar beeped sharply. A formation of 3 fast-moving ships appeared on the edge of their screen. The sensor labeled them as F-22 starfighters from the United Earth Patrol. Rian's heart sank. "They're coming here. Command must have sent them to stop us." Mira kept her gaze steady. "Then we will see if they understand what we are trying to do." The fighters approached fast, engines glowing blue as they cut through the radiation clouds. One of them opened a channel. "Unidentified cargo vessel, you are in a restricted area. Withdraw immediately or face interception." Ryan looked at Mira, waiting for her to respond. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Hold course," she said. Outside, the F-22 circled them like hawks, ready to block any move toward the surface. But as the Starlift held position and continued its precise maneuvers, the fighter pilots began to hesitate. Something about the way the cargo ship moved didn't feel random. It was the flight pattern of a professional. The burning light from Outpost 19 spread across the moon's surface like a red sunrise. The reactor at the heart of the colony pulsed and groaned under extreme pressure. Cracks ran through the metal walls and waves of radiation shimmered into space. Inside the outpost, hundreds of civilians were trapped in dark corridors, some praying, some trying to reach broken communication panels. The Starlift held position above the chaos. Its engines glowed a dull blue as it fought against the moon's weak gravity. Mira sat in the cockpit, eyes locked on the damaged reactor below. Her calm expression hid the heavy thoughts moving through her mind. She could almost feel the panic rising from the colony, as if the voices of the trapped civilians were echoing through the metal walls of her ship. Ryan checked the control readings. Radiation is climbing fast. We can't hold this position long. The hull is already absorbing too much, Mira replied quietly. Then we make every second count. Down in the cargo bay, Bren shouted over the intercom. Captain, shields are at maximum. We can handle another hour, maybe less. Understood, she said. Start preparing emergency pods and oxygen tanks. We may have to bring them on board directly. Brent hesitated. Captain, with respect, we are not a rescue ship. We don't have enough seats for everyone. Mira turned her head slightly. Then we make space. The old engineer paused before answering. He had served on many ships, but never under a pilot like her. There was something in her voice that made even fear step aside. Outside the ship, 3 F-22 starfighters glided closer. Their leader opened a transmission again. Cargo vessel Starlift, you are ordered to pull back. The radiation field is too strong. You are putting your crew at risk. Mira kept her gaze on the outpost and replied, If we pull back, those people die. Rescue ships are coming, the fighter pilot said sharply. You are not equipped for this operation. Mira's tone stayed calm. How long before the rescue ships arrive? There was silence for a moment. Then the pilot answered, At least 40 minutes. Mira's fingers tightened slightly on the controls. She looked at Ryan. The reactor will not last that long. Ryan swallowed hard. They will court-martial you for this. Mira's voice did not waver. Better that than silence while people burn. The fighter pilots exchanged words among themselves. They could not understand why a simple cargo pilot was risking her life and her crew against direct orders. But as they watched her movements, they realized there was nothing clumsy about her flying. She maneuvered the heavy transport with skill none of them had seen in years. Inside the colony, the control room was filled with smoke. The remaining engineers tried to contain the explosion by closing power channels, but nothing worked. A young technician named Lyra screamed into a broken transmitter. This is Outpost 19, is anyone out there? We are losing control of the reactor. Her voice broke, filled with exhaustion and fear. Suddenly, her screen flickered. A steady voice came through. Outpost 19, this is the cargo vessel Starlift. We read your signal. Lyra froze for a second, unsure if it was real. You heard us? We are trapped. Reactor containment is down. We have civilians in the lower tunnels. We can't get them out, Mira answered. We are above your position. We will assist with evacuation. Keep your remaining doors sealed and guide the civilians toward the east access tunnel. We will shield that area from the radiation. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. You are actually coming down here? That's suicide. Stay calm, Mira said. We will reach you. Ryan looked over at Mira with disbelief. You plan to land near that reactor? We will be cooked alive. Mira's eyes never left the screen. Not if we use the cargo shields as a barrier. We will approach from the north side and use the mountain ridge for cover. The Starlift began its descent. The engines roared, shaking dust and debris off the moon's surface. The fighter pilots followed from above, watching in silent awe as the large cargo ship lowered itself toward the danger zone. It was something no pilot with sense would attempt. Inside the cargo bay, Bren and his crew worked fast. They detached the external shielding plates and mounted them on mechanical arms. The ship would use these to block radiation while hovering near the tunnels. Sweat covered their faces as the heat inside the ship began to rise. Rian kept adjusting the navigation settings. His hands trembled slightly, but Mira's steady voice guided him. Trim by 3 degrees. Lower power to the right engine. Keep the balance steady. Do not fight the wind. Let the air carry you. He followed her commands, and to his surprise, the ship glided smoothly into position. Beneath them, the colony's outer shell came into full view. Parts of it were already melted. Craters burned red where the reactor heat had burst through the metal. Mira used the ship's scanners to locate the eastern tunnel. She spotted faint energy signatures of trapped civilians. "There," she said. "They are still alive." Ryan could hear the faint cries through the external microphones. It made his heart ache. "How are we going to get them out?" Mira replied, "By giving them a path." She activated the cargo arms. The heavy shields extended from the belly of the ship, unfolding like metal wings. Slowly, she moved them into place, forming a protective dome over the tunnel entrance. Radiation readings dropped slightly. Inside the colony, Lyra saw the shadow of the Starlift cover the tunnel window. She realized what the cargo pilot was doing. "She is giving us a shield," she whispered. "Everyone move to the eastern passage. Stay low and keep close together." The colonists began to move, their faces pale under the emergency lights. Some carried children, others supported injured workers. The heat was unbearable and the air was thick with smoke. Back on the ship, Bren's voice came through again. "Captain, hull temperature is climbing too fast. We cannot stay much longer." Mira's hands moved quickly over the controls. "We will hold until the first group reaches the surface. After that, we rotate shields." The ship creaked as the radiation struck its armor. Ryan checked the readings again. "Shields are dropping by 12%. If this continues, we will lose the outer hull." Mira kept her tone firm. "Then we will make 12% enough." Outside, the F-22 fighters circled lower. Their leader watched through his visor as the Starlift stood its ground above the collapsing colony. He felt a deep respect rising inside him. Whoever that pilot was, she was not just any freighter captain. She flew like someone who had seen the heart of battle. He opened his channel again. "Cargo vessel, this is Commander Rian of the Earth Patrol Wing. Do you require assistance?" Mira answered, "Yes, we need your shielding projectors to strengthen our left side. We are losing containment there." The F-22 commander hesitated for a moment, then nodded to his wingmen. "You heard her. Deploy shields on our mark." The starfighters moved into formation, positioning themselves beside the cargo ship. Their energy fields linked with the Starlift's protective barrier, forming a bright dome of light around the tunnel. The radiation level dropped further. Ryan looked in amazement. "They are helping us now," Mira nodded. "Sometimes courage is contagious." Inside the colony, the first group of survivors reached the outer gate. The airlock opened and they stepped into the shielded zone. They saw the massive cargo ship hovering above them, its engines roaring and its hull glowing from the heat. Lyra shouted into the comm, "We made it. We have the first group outside. Please do not leave yet. More are coming." Mira responded, "We will not leave until all are safe." The next minutes were filled with tension. The reactor's energy spikes became more violent. The ground shook under the colony and large cracks appeared across the landing pads. Ryan's monitor flashed red warnings. "Captain, the core is about to go critical," he said. "We need to pull back." Mira's expression stayed unreadable. "Not yet. The last group is still inside." Bren's voice broke through, strained with worry. "Captain, we are reaching hull failure limit." Mira replied softly, "You know the rule, Bren, nobody left behind." Ryan turned to look at her. For a moment he saw something in her eyes, not fear, but memory. It was the look of someone who had once made a promise long ago and was still keeping it. Another wave of heat struck the ship. Sparks flew from the side panels. The shields flickered, but Mira's steady hands corrected every shake. She guided the ship like a guardian standing between death and life. The F-22 commander's voice came again. "Captain, our shields are overheating." "We cannot hold much longer." Mira replied, "Hold for one more minute." He paused, then simply said, "Understood." Inside the colony, Lyra and the engineers gathered the last of the civilians. They pushed them toward the tunnel, coughing from smoke. When the final child was lifted through the airlock, Lyra turned back to look at the reactor chamber. The floor below glowed white-hot. She whispered a quiet thank you and ran toward the exit. Outside, the radiation alarms on the Starlift hit the maximum level. Ryan shouted, "All groups are clear." Mira exhaled once and pulled the control lever. "All right. Lift off now." The engines roared to full power. The Starlift rose sharply from the ground, dragging with it the remaining shield panels. The F-22s followed close, providing cover as they ascended through the burning clouds. The explosion followed a moment later, lighting the entire sky in a brilliant flash. The shockwave struck their ships, shaking every bolt loose. But the Starlift held together. When the light faded, the colony below was gone, but 300 lives had survived. The long flight back to the nearest fleet station was quiet. The Starlift carried more than 300 rescued civilians packed into its cargo bay. The atmosphere inside was tense but filled with relief. Children sat beside their parents, wrapped in blankets given by the crew. Some people whispered prayers of thanks, while others just stared silently at the floor, still in shock that they were alive. Mira sat in the cockpit, her hands resting on the controls as she guided the ship through the black stretch of space. Her face showed no pride, no sign of victory, only calm focus. For her, the mission was not over until every person was safely delivered. Rian sat beside her watching the radar screen. The F-22 patrol still followed at a distance, their lights blinking faintly against the darkness. It was strange for him to see military fighters guarding a slow cargo freighter, but after what they had just witnessed, none of the fighter pilots dared leave her side. The communication channel opened with a soft crackle. Cargo vessel Starlift, this is Commander Rian of the Earth Patrol Wing. You are clear to approach Station Theta 9. Medical teams are waiting for your arrival. Mira nodded and replied, Understood, Commander. Thank you for your assistance. Her voice was calm, polite, but distant. Commander Rian could tell she was someone used to leading rather than following. He leaned back in his cockpit seat, thinking about the flight patterns he had seen during the rescue. No ordinary cargo pilot could have flown like that. She had made complex maneuvers look effortless, even inside a deadly radiation zone. He switched to his private channel and spoke to his wingmates. Did any of you see that landing? The way she used the ridge for cover and balanced the ship on the thrusters. One of them replied, Yes, sir. I've only seen that kind of control in old Top Gun footage. Rian frowned slightly. I thought the Top Gun program was disbanded after the Mars conflict. Another pilot said maybe she was one of them. Rian did not answer. He kept his thoughts quiet, but a strange sense of respect grew in his chest. Whoever that woman was, she deserved more than a medal. Inside the Starlift, Bren entered the cockpit with a tired look on his face. His clothes were stained with oil, and his hands were still shaking from the heat they had faced. Captain, the cooling system is working again. The outer hull held better than expected. We were lucky. Mira gave a small nod. You did good work, Bren. The old engineer smiled faintly. Luck had nothing to do with it. It was your flying that kept us alive. Rian turned his chair. He is right, Captain. I've never seen anyone control a ship like that. You were moving through radiation like you were dancing. Mira kept her eyes on the flight path. Training never leaves you even when you try to forget it. Rian frowned a little. What kind of training? She did not answer. Instead, she pointed toward the display. We are nearing Theta 9. Prepare for docking sequence. Rian understood the message. She was not ready to talk about her past, but curiosity filled his mind. Who was this quiet pilot who flew like a legend? The Starlift entered the approach corridor of the station. The massive structure floated in orbit around a pale blue planet. Its docking arms extended outward, ready to receive them. Dozens of rescue workers stood by, waiting to unload the rescued civilians. As the ship locked into place, Mira powered down the engines. The familiar hum of the ship faded, replaced by the distant sounds of cheers from the passengers. Rian looked out the window and saw medical teams rushing into the docking bay. For the first time in hours, he allowed himself to breathe deeply. Bren leaned against the door. We did it, Captain. All of them survived. Mira stood up slowly. Good. Make sure everyone gets water and food before transfer. The crew will assist the medics. She turned to leave the cockpit, but Rian stopped her. Captain, can I ask something before you go? She glanced back. Yes. Why do you risk so much for people you don't even know? Any other pilot would have followed orders and stayed away. Mira looked at him for a long moment. Because once someone risked everything for me, and I never forgot. Without saying more, she walked out of the cockpit. Rian watched her go. He realized there were stories hidden behind that calm face, stories that no one on this ship had ever heard. When the station crew finished unloading the civilians, Mira met Commander Rian near the docking gate. He was tall, wearing the dark uniform of the Earth Patrol, and his expression carried both authority and respect. Captain Mira, he said, offering his hand. I have seen many pilots in my career, but what you did back there was beyond courage. Mira shook his hand politely. The credit belongs to the crew. Without them, no one would have survived. Rian smiled slightly. Your crew follows you because you make them believe they can do the impossible. She didn't respond to the compliment. Her eyes scanned the station deck as medical teams guided the civilians toward safety. The faint hum of engines and the soft chatter of relieved voices filled the air. Rian noticed how distant she seemed. He tried another approach. You flew like a Top Gun graduate. The way you handled the Starlift under pressure reminded me of old combat maneuvers. Where did you learn to fly like that? Mira's expression did not change. Experience teaches what training cannot. Rian tilted his head. You were military once, weren't you? Mira looked away. That was a long time ago. The commander did not press further, but his curiosity grew. There was something familiar in her movements and in her voice. He had seen recorded footage of the Mars Rebellion when he was a young cadet. There had been one name that stood out, a pilot who saved an entire fleet by performing impossible aerial maneuvers under enemy fire. The name was Mira Tan. Could it be her? While Rian tried to piece it together, the station commander arrived, thanking both ships for their efforts. Official reports were already being prepared, and news broadcasts across the fleet began to spread the story of the daring rescue at Outpost 19. Later that night, after the chaos settled, Ryan found Mira standing near one of the observation windows of the station. She was alone, looking at the planet below. Its surface shone with gentle light from the sun, calm and peaceful compared to what they had just survived. He approached quietly. Captain, the fleet sent a message. They want a full report tomorrow morning. You may have to explain why you disobeyed direct orders. Mira nodded. I expected that, Ryan sighed. They should be thanking you, not questioning you. They will do what they must, she said calmly. I will do the same. Ryan hesitated, then asked softly, Were you really part of Top Gun? For a moment she did not answer. Then she spoke, her voice low. Yes, I was trained there. Years ago. Ryan's eyes widened. The Top Gun Academy? The one that trained the fleet's best fighter pilots? She nodded once. I graduated as commander before I left. I flew during the Mars Rebellion. Too many died under my command. After that, I decided I would rather save lives than take them. Ryan listened in silence. He could not imagine the things she must have seen back then. So that's why you became a cargo pilot. Mira gave a faint smile. Flying is my life. But purpose matters more than glory. He wanted to say something more, but the station lights dimmed as the night cycle began. Mira looked back toward the stars. Go rest, Ryan. Tomorrow will bring questions and we need clear minds to answer them. The young co-pilot nodded and left quietly. After he was gone, Mira remained by the window. She could see the faint trails of the F-22's flying patrol outside the station. For the first time in years, she had flown like the pilot she once was. The feeling of control, the rush of precision, and the sound of engines answering her every move brought memories she had long buried. But there was also peace in her heart. This time, her flying had saved lives instead of ending them. In another part of the station, Commander Rian sat at his desk reviewing the flight recordings. Every maneuver from the Starlift was displayed in bright holographic detail. The readings were flawless, every movement measured and perfect. He shook his head slowly. That is no ordinary cargo pilot, he muttered. He searched through the database, checking pilot records. After several minutes, he found the file he was looking for. A classified profile of Commander Mira Tan, former Top Gun ace. The picture matched perfectly. Rian leaned back in his chair. He felt both admiration and guilt. The fleet had let a legend disappear into silence, and now she had returned without a uniform, without recognition, but with the same courage that once saved a fleet. He closed the file and looked toward the window. Tomorrow the world will know who she is again, he said quietly. While he made his decision, Mira returned to her ship. The Starlift rested silently in the docking bay, its hull scorched but intact. She placed her hand on the side of the cockpit as if greeting an old friend. You did well, she whispered to the ship. You always do. Bren appeared from behind holding a repair log. Captain, the crew wants to know if we are staying or moving out after the hearing. Mira looked at him and smiled gently. That depends on the Fleet Council, but no matter what they decide, we will keep flying. There will always be someone who needs help. Bren nodded. You remind me why I came back to space. Not many captains would do what you did. Then we will just keep proving that courage still exists, she said. As Bren left, Mira sat in the pilot's chair once again. The stars filled the window ahead of her, endless and silent. The next morning came quietly, but the station was already alive with excitement. News reporters filled the docking bay, cameras ready, waiting for the legendary cargo pilot who had saved 300 lives. Her story had spread fast across the fleet. Some called her the hero of Outpost 19, others the Phantom of Top Gun. Mira woke early, long before the noise began. She sat alone in her small cabin aboard the Starlift. The light from the nearby planet shone through the window, casting a soft glow across the room. She wore her plain flight jacket, the same one she had used during the rescue. There were no medals, no insignias, only the marks of long years and countless flights. Bren knocked softly on the door. "Captain, they are waiting for you in the command hall." Mira looked up. "The hearing?" "Yes. Commander Rion and the Fleet Council representatives are already there." She stood up slowly. "Then it's time." As they walked through the station corridors, people stopped and stared. Civilians, engineers, and soldiers all whispered her name. Some saluted quietly, others just smiled with gratitude. It felt strange for Mira, who had spent years avoiding attention. Rion joined them near the lift. "Captain, the whole station knows your story. They even played the flight recording on the news channel." Mira sighed. "I suppose there's no way to hide now." Ryan smiled. "You should be proud. You did what no one else could." She looked at him, calm and serious. "Pride has no place in duty, Ryan. We do what must be done, not for applause, but because it is right." The lift doors opened, revealing the large command hall. Inside, several officers stood near the front table. Commander Rion was there, along with Fleet Admiral Thorne, an older man with silver hair and a sharp gaze. Reporters were not allowed in this meeting, but news drones waited outside the door. As Mira entered, the officers turned to look at her. The room fell silent. Admiral Thorne spoke first. "Captain Mira Tan, you are charged with ignoring a direct fleet order and entering a restricted radiation zone during the evacuation of Outpost 19. However, you also saved 300 lives. We are here to decide the nature of your action, reckless or heroic." Mira stepped forward and saluted respectfully. "Sir, I accept full responsibility for my decision. I received the order to retreat, but the civilian colony would not have survived. I made a choice," the Admiral nodded. "And you were aware that violating the order could result in suspension or dismissal from service?" "Yes, sir," Commander Rion spoke up. "With respect, Admiral, her decision saved every life on that outpost. If she had not acted, we would be writing 300 death reports right now." The Admiral raised a hand. "Commander, this is not a debate. We are aware of the results. What we are deciding is whether such actions can be justified under command protocol." Mira stood calmly. Her voice remained steady. "Sir, in combat training we are taught that a pilot must adapt when orders do not fit the situation. My experience told me that waiting for clearance would have cost lives." Admiral Thorne studied her carefully. "You speak like a soldier." "I was one, sir." Rion stepped forward. "Admiral, she was more than a soldier. She was one of the best. Mira Tan, Top Gun Academy, class of 219. Her records show unmatched aerial performance during the Mars Rebellion. She disappeared after the war. Until now," the Admiral's eyes narrowed. "So it is true," Mira said nothing. She had hoped her past would stay buried, but now it was out in the open. The Admiral sighed. "I remember the name. You led the Black Wing Squadron, the youngest commander in the fleet. You refused to fire on a surrendering enemy convoy. You were discharged for disobedience." "Yes, sir," Mira replied quietly. "I left because I wanted to fly for life, not for death." A heavy silence filled the room. Everyone knew what that meant. The war had changed many pilots, but few had the courage to walk away from the uniform. After a long pause, Admiral Thorne spoke again. "You broke orders twice in your career, Captain. Both times you saved lives." "I cannot punish that," Rion smiled faintly. The Admiral continued. "However, you also risked your entire crew and ship. I hope you understand that bravery without caution is still dangerous." "I do, sir," Mira said. The Admiral leaned back in his chair. "Very well. The Fleet Council will not pursue punishment. Instead, you and your crew are to be commended for your service. The official ceremony will take place this evening." Mira nodded respectfully. "Thank you, sir." The meeting ended and the officers filed out. Rion approached her near the door. "You handled that well, Captain." The Admiral respects courage even if he hides it behind rules. Mira gave a small smile. Thank you, Commander. You spoke on my behalf. I appreciate that, Rian shrugged. You earned it. I just spoke the truth. He paused for a moment, then asked, have you ever thought about returning to the fleet? With your skill, you could train a whole generation of pilots. Mira shook her head. I belong in the skies, not classrooms. My place is where people need help, not medals. Rian nodded slowly. Then may the stars guide you, Captain. Later that evening, the ceremony began in the main hall of the station. The large chamber was filled with officers, civilians, and media crews. The rescued colonists stood near the front, their faces bright with gratitude. Mira and her crew stood together in their plain uniforms. The Admiral entered with formal steps and addressed the crowd. Today we honor courage born not from command but from compassion, he said. When others followed protocol, Captain Mira Tan and her crew chose humanity. For that choice, 300 souls stand alive before us. The crowd erupted in applause. The sound echoed through the hall. The Admiral motioned for Mira to step forward. She did so calmly, though the attention made her uneasy. He handed her a small medal. This is the Star of Valor, awarded to those who act beyond duty to protect life. You have earned it. Mira accepted it with both hands. Thank you, sir. But this belongs to my crew as well. Without them, none of it would have been possible. The Admiral smiled. A true leader never forgets her team. After the ceremony, reporters gathered around asking questions, taking photos, and broadcasting her name across every channel. How did it feel to fly through the radiation storm? What made you disobey the order? Is it true you were a Top Gun ace? Mira answered with short, humble responses. I did what was needed. The crew worked as one. The people mattered most. When the questions became too many, Ryan stepped in and guided her away. Captain, you need air. Let's go to the balcony. They stepped outside the hall. The night sky stretched endlessly, filled with stars. The lights of the nearby planet shimmered below. Ryan turned to her. You handled it perfectly. You are a hero again, Captain. Mira shook her head. No, Ryan, heroes are those we saved. We just gave them a chance to live. He smiled gently. Still, I am proud to serve with you. Then keep learning, she said softly. One day you will lead your own ship. Remember, skill is nothing without purpose. He nodded firmly. Far across the hall, Commander Rian watched them. He was speaking to Admiral Thorne, who seemed deep in thought. She still has the instincts of a commander, Rian said quietly. The fleet could use someone like her again. There's a new threat rising near the Titan Belt. The patrols are short on experienced pilots. The Admiral sighed. You think she will agree to return? Rian smiled faintly. I think part of her already has. Later that night, as the hall emptied, Mira returned to her ship. She walked through the quiet corridors, her footsteps soft against the metal floor. Inside the cockpit, she ran her hand across the controls. Rian entered behind her. Captain, are we leaving soon? Tomorrow, she said. There are new supply routes near the border colonies. They need transport ships, he nodded. Then we will be ready. She looked at him and smiled faintly. Good. The sky never waits. Before she could power down the systems, her communicator beeped. It was a private transmission. She opened it carefully. The screen showed Commander Rian. Mira, he said, his tone serious. I know you want peace, but the fleet needs you. A new threat has appeared near Titan. We lost contact with 2 patrols. I'm assembling a rescue task force, and I want you to lead the civilian escort. You are the only one I trust for this. Mira stared at the screen. You know I'm not military anymore. I know, Rian replied. But you are still the best pilot we have. If we don't act, more lives will be lost. For a long time, Mira said nothing. Her eyes moved to the stars outside the window. The same stars she had once sworn to leave behind. Finally, she spoke. Send me the coordinates, Rian nodded. You will have them within the hour. Thank you, Captain. The call ended. Ryan looked at her with concern. Are we going back out there again? Mira smiled faintly. It seems the sky isn't done with us yet. She looked ahead through the cockpit window where the stars glimmered in endless patterns. There was fear in her heart, but also determination. The universe still needed hands willing to reach out in the dark. As she powered up the engines, the hum of the starlift returned, steady and strong. The lights flickered to life and the ship came alive once more. This time she knew the fight would not just be about survival. It would be about redemption and hope. The return of the Top Gun ace had just begun. The morning sky above the fleet station was quiet, but inside the hangars the energy was rising fast. Engineers moved between ships, carrying tools and energy cells. Pilots checked their systems and calibrated their flight patterns. Everyone knew that another mission was coming, one more dangerous than the last. Mira walked across the hangar floor with calm steps. Her ship, the Starlift, waited at the far end, glowing faintly under the hangar lights. Ryan and Bren were already working near the cargo bay. They had loaded emergency kits, fuel cells, and medical pods. Ryan looked up as Mira approached. "Captain, we are ready for launch. Commander Rion sent the coordinates. The Titan Belt patrols have gone silent for 2 days." Mira nodded. "Any word from the search teams?" "Nothing yet," Bren said. "The last transmission mentioned strange energy fields near the debris ring. The fleet suspects an unknown interference." Mira looked at the map on her handheld screen. The Titan Belt was a dangerous area filled with broken moons and floating rocks. Old mining stations drifted through the dust clouds. Many pilots avoided it because the magnetic storms could scramble navigation. "Prepare the stabilizers and radiation shields," she said. "If the storm starts again, I want full protection for the cargo hull." Ryan smiled nervously. "You always think ahead, Captain." Mira looked at him calmly. "That is why we are still alive." A voice came over the communicator. "This is Commander Rion. All ships report to Briefing Room 3. Mira motioned for her crew to follow. Inside the briefing room, several pilots and officers stood around a large holographic map of the Titan Belt. The map displayed bright red zones where signals had been lost. Rion stood at the center, speaking firmly. "We have lost 2 patrols in this sector. Scans show energy surges that do not match natural patterns. The fleet suspects possible hostile interference. We are sending a task group to investigate and retrieve survivors if possible." He looked around at the gathered crews. "We have 3 fighter wings, 2 rescue cruisers, and 1 cargo vessel for support. Captain Miratan will command the escort and handle civilian rescue operations." The pilots exchanged glances. Some whispered softly, impressed to see her again. The story of her last mission had already become legend. Rion continued. "This mission is classified. You will encounter debris, radiation, and possibly enemy activity. Follow your commander's lead and maintain formation at all times." Mira stepped forward. "If we find survivors, our priority will be to secure them before the storm worsens. I will lead the Starlift through the debris field. The fighters will provide cover. No one acts alone." The pilots nodded in agreement. Rion gave her a small nod. "Good luck, Captain." Within an hour, the ships were ready for launch. Engines roared across the hangar as the massive doors opened to the dark space beyond. Mira climbed into the cockpit, fastening her harness and checking the control panels. Rion took the co-pilot seat. Bren monitored the systems from the rear station. The communication link came alive with voices from the other ships. "Wing 1, ready for departure. Rescue cruiser Vega, engines online. Cargo vessel Starlift, system stable." Mira pressed the transmit button. "All units follow my lead, setting course for Titan Belt, Sector 9. The fleet moved out, leaving the bright light of the station behind. Stars stretched across the black expanse as the ships entered the long jump corridor. During the jump, Ryan looked at Mira. "Captain, do you think the missing patrols are alive?" Mira's voice was calm. "If they were trained like the F-22 squad, they will fight to the last breath. We just have to reach them in time." After several hours, the jump sequence ended. The fleet dropped into the Titan Belt, surrounded by broken fragments of ancient moons. Huge rocks drifted slowly, their surfaces glowing from sunlight reflections. A thin dust storm filled the space around them, turning the view hazy. "Scanning for signals," Bren said. "Picking up faint energy traces ahead. Could be a damaged ship." "Lock coordinates," Mira said. "All ships maintain formation. Watch for magnetic spikes." The fleet advanced carefully. Lightning-like bursts of energy flashed between rocks, lighting up the belt in blue and white sparks. One of the fighters reported static on comms. "Interference rising," Ryan warned. "We are entering the storm core." Mira adjusted the stabilizers. "Hold steady. Keep the shields balanced." Suddenly, A loud alarm rang through the cockpit. Unidentified ships detected, Bren said quickly. Multiple contacts closing in from the far side of the belt. Mira looked at the radar. 5 red blips appeared and began moving fast. They were not fleet signals. Hostiles confirmed, she said. All wings, defensive formation. The fighter squadrons responded at once, spreading out around the Starlift. Laser flashes filled the dark as enemy craft darted between rocks. Their ships were smaller but faster, shaped like jagged arrows. One fighter shouted over the radio. "They are targeting the rescue cruisers." Mira acted instantly. Vega cruiser, pull back. Starlift moving ahead to block their path. Ryan stared at her. "Captain, that is suicide. We do not leave anyone behind," she said firmly. The Starlift surged forward. Mira angled the shields to cover the rescue ship behind them. Enemy fire struck the hull, shaking the ship hard. The control panels flickered, but she held her grip steady. "Return fire," she ordered. Bren activated the defense cannons. Twin beams of plasma shot out, striking one of the enemy fighters. It exploded into a cloud of light and dust. The rest of the squadron chased the others, forming a protective arc around the Starlift. Mira guided the ship through a narrow corridor between 2 massive rocks. The debris scraped the hull, but they made it through. "Energy signal increasing ahead," Bren said. "It is one of our missing patrols." "Move in fast," Mira said. They found the wreckage of an F-22 patrol ship floating near the debris ring. Emergency lights blinked faintly on its surface. Mira ordered Ryan to open communication. "This is Captain Mira Tan of the Starlift. Respond if you can hear me." Static filled the channel. Then a weak voice answered. "This is Lieutenant Soren. We are alive but running out of oxygen. 3 of us are trapped inside the cabin." "Hold on," Mira said. "We are coming." She maneuvered the Starlift close and deployed the docking arm. The mechanical grip locked onto the damaged ship. The crew moved quickly to attach the transfer tubes. Ryan monitored the oxygen levels. "Captain, we have less than 4 minutes before they lose air." "Then we do not waste time," Mira said. Bren coordinated the transfer. Docking complete, pulling survivors through. Moments later, the first pilot emerged through the transfer tunnel, coughing and gasping for air. 2 more followed, one of them injured but alive. "Medical team, get them stable," Mira ordered. The rescued pilots looked at her with surprise. "You again." "The cargo pilot from Outpost 19. Mira smiled faintly. "Still flying where I am not supposed to." Before anyone could relax, a warning light blinked red on the control panel. "Multiple enemy reinforcements approaching," Bren said. "At least 10 more ships." Mira looked at the radar. The hostiles were forming a large attack pattern. She took a deep breath. "All units, form up behind me. We are heading out of the belt." Rion's voice came through the comm link. "Mira, we are reading the same signals from our side. The interference is spreading. If you do not leave now, you will lose navigation." Mira replied. "We have the survivors. We are moving." The enemy ships closed in fast. The Starlift accelerated, engines roaring. The fighters covered her from behind, firing at every approaching craft. The rocks around them exploded from the impacts. Ryan struggled with the navigation. "We are losing signal locks. The storm is jamming everything." "Follow manual flight path," Mira said. "I will guide us out." She gripped the control stick and focused on the faint lights ahead. Her instincts took over. Every turn, every drift, every burst of thrust came from years of training. The Starlift danced through the chaos like a living thing. The F-22 pilots watching her from their cockpits spoke with awe. "That is not cargo flight. That is Top Gun flying." Mira did not answer. She moved through the asteroid tunnel, dodging plasma bursts and falling debris. The storm intensified, lightning flashing across the rocks. "Shields at 60%, Bren called out. "Hold them steady," Mira said. Finally, a gap appeared ahead. The dark storm clouds began to thin, revealing open space. Mira pushed the engines to full power. The ship burst through the final layer of debris, followed by the remaining fighters and cruisers. They were free. Cheers erupted over the radio as the fleet regrouped. The enemy ships did not pursue beyond the belt. Rion's voice came through the channel. "All ships accounted for. Excellent work, Captain. Mira smiled softly. Mission complete, Commander. They returned to the fleet station 2 days later. The rescued pilots were taken to the medical bay and the ships were repaired. The Fleet Council gathered again to recognize the success of the mission. During the ceremony, Rian spoke before everyone. There are pilots who follow orders, and there are pilots who define them. Captain Mira Tan has once again proven that courage and compassion can change the course of lives. The crowd applauded loudly. The rescued pilots stood and saluted Mira. Even the young fighter cadets looked at her with admiration. After the ceremony, Ryan walked beside her through the hangar. Captain, are we staying this time? Mira looked at the Starlift, her old and trusted ship. No, Ryan. There will always be someone out there who needs help.